Okay, before we complete the exit ticket, I want to go over some key takeaways from chapters 1 and 2. I feel like as we continue to move into different chapters, we tend to forget what happened before. You got to remember we're continuing to build up on the big question from chapters 1 and 2. So the more information we learn, we can't forget information either. So your exit ticket is going to be sort of a mini review on our key takeaways. So make sure you're listening carefully. In chapters 1 and 2, you remember when we first started out trying to figure out how dolphins communicated or how the mother calf was able to communicate with her. I'm sorry, how the mother dolphin was able to communicate with her calf. We learned that when they were separated, dolphins can communicate with whistles and clicks. So we learned this when we were reading one of the texts. We also learned that dolphins communicate by touch. But remember, when they're separated, touching is not going to be an option. The only way that they're going to be able to communicate when they're separated, if you remember, is to whistle and click, and for them to do the whistles and the clicks. Again, when you're separated, touching is not going to be a way for them to communicate. So remember that for your exit ticket. We also learned that whistles travel as sound waves. So whatever sounds the dolphins are making, that sound is going to travel as sound waves. I want us to remember that as we continue to build on top of sound waves and understanding sound waves. Sound waves travel away from the source towards the listener. Remember when we learned about waves in the definition, we learned that the motion is always going to go away from the source towards the listener. So in your assessment, when you were asked about the tsunami that was moving from Alaska towards Hawaii, the source was Alaska and it was actually moving towards Hawaii. So you should have hit that down arrow. So you got to remember what the source is. When we think about the mother dolphin and her calf, the mother dolphin is sending out the call, therefore she is the source. When she is in the water and she's sending out that call, sound waves are going to travel away from her and they're going to actually move towards the listener, which is her calf. We also learned that sounds can travel through different kinds of materials like air, water, or solid materials. Some of us got a little caught up on those solid materials in our exit ticket that one time. So when we think solid materials, we're thinking walls. We are thinking desk. We're thinking glass windows, the ground, the floor. Sound can still move and travel through those materials through because those particles are moving through those materials. Which brings me to our next point. Materials are made of particles that are too small to see. So although we can't see these particles around us, we know that there are particles in the air. We know that there are particles in the water. Um, and just like there are particles in the air and the water, there are particles in solid materials as well. Now we got to think about how those particles get from point A to point B. So when particles collide, it's important that those particles collide. If they're not colliding, they are not creating energy. Energy is not being transferred. So when particles collide, energy transfers, allowing the sound waves to move towards the listener. So again, and we did this in one of our recent simulations. If those particles are not colliding, again, the energy is not being transferred. And if the energy is not being transferred, that sound wave cannot get from point A to point B. So that sound wave cannot get from the mother dolphin to her calf if those particles don't collide, if that energy is not being transferred. And so that's a very important role. This is very key. This was actually our answer for our last big question in chapter 2. This was very important that we wrote this as one of our pieces of evidence. So we're going to continue to need to know that information as well. Last but not least, sound energy travels as a wave. This was part of our claim for our last letter to the superintendent when she asked us about dolphins being able to send sound energy in the water. Yes, because sound energy travels as a wave, and we know that wave is a sound wave, and we know that wave has particles in it that are going to shift, that are going to move, and that are going to eventually collide and transfer energy, allowing sound to get from one place to another. Those are the key takeaways that are going to help you with your exit ticket. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Don't forget to complete your math, your literacy, and your ELA. You have 4 assignments every day, you guys. Make sure you are getting the work done. I want to see and hear more names as we vote on Kipster of the Week. And the only way to be Kipster of the Week, again, is to complete all of your work. And don't forget the homeroom challenge as well. Make sure you are completing your assignments. KU has been representing. Okay? KU has been winning and killing it by completing the most assignments every week. So Spell House in Notre Dame, I need you guys to step your game up. Hopefully it's a little sunny outside and you can get outside, take a little walk. Those of you who have pets, who have dogs, take a nice long stroll with your dog. Have a conversation with your dog. Don't be embarrassed. It's okay.